Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Wigtown Book Festival's Breakfast Book Show with us, the Bookshop Band. I'm Ben.
I'm Beth. Hi.
And this morning we are joined by three very wonderful authors, or people associated with literature, I should say. So first of all, we have Mary Kidd. Good morning.
I can't hear you guys.
Oh, can you not hear me? Oh, that's no good. We'll rectify that shortly. You should be coming through. You should be able to hear us. Can you not hear us?
Can
No?
the others hear us?
Can
Should we
anyone
check?
else hear us? Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Can you guys hear us?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it's your computer. Maybe. Anyway, well, Mary, can you hear us at all now? Can you hear us? Hello? 1, 2. No. No. Okay. Maybe, Mary, if you could rejoin. I'm just going to send Mary a message. Beth is going to spiel. Oh yeah, great. Here we go.
There we go.
It's the always shambolic breakfast show, as everyone knows, mostly by our questions.
It was all going so well. We've just
all
had a
good.
chat beforehand, and it was all absolutely fine, of course. But we could introduce our other guests.
We could, exactly. I brought them on very abruptly. So this is Donald Ryan, author in the top. Oh, it's so difficult. Up there. Nice to meet you.
Hi guys.
Welcome, Donald. And
Hello.
also we've got Peggy Hughes yes, got it right. There we go, Peggy. But I'm going to bring you all into there, and hopefully we'll be joined back by Mary very shortly. So welcome. The Wigtown Book Festival has obviously gone online this year, but it does mean that we can be joined by people from further. So Donald's over in Ireland, in Limerick, I believe. In your lovely new converted studio top there. Is that your writing room, Donald?
Well, it will be from now on, yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually using the old attic, with just exposed beams and Christmas trees and boxes of books everywhere. All summer, my wife was mortified that people were seeing this, so she insisted on us converting it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think you look like you're in a spaceship or some kind of.
Yeah, it's my
futuristic-
new office chair. I'm very proud of it.
I love it. I love it.
That's very good. Well, I think, Donald, should we, as Mary hopefully will join us shortly, but should we start off with chatting to you about your book? So I should just say, we came across or were introduced to you by the Nana Art Centre, which was, hi, Mary.
Hi.
Yes.
Yay!
Hey,
Fair.
I can hear you.
Mary, we'll start with Donald, and then we'll come to you after that. Lovely. So Donald, yeah, we were introduced to you by the Nana Art Centre because we were going to do a concert there in June, I think it was, or early July, and obviously that was cancelled. But as part of that concert, we were going to write a song inspired by one of your books, The Spinning Heart. So that was how we met you. But this is the first time we've actually got to see you in the virtual flesh. So it's very exciting to have you on.
Thanks so much.
But you've got a new book that you've just come out, I believe. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. Well, it's out about a month now, Strange Flowers. But can I just say that it's one of my proudest boasts that you guys wrote a song and made a video based on one of my books. It's just the most amazing thing. Even my publishers were saying, like, this just never happens. This is just the coolest thing ever, It was fantastic. But The Spinning Heart was my first novel. It was published in 2012, and this is my current book, Strange Flowers. So it just came out about a month ago or so, yeah. Not even, no.
And how's that been releasing something through lockdown?
Well, it's been a bit strange. I guess everybody feels isolated and a little bit kind of cloistered and restricted. But not being able to go to bookshops and sign books and stuff has been a bit strange. So I've been signing mountains of little inserts that booksellers put into the books. But my wife is having treatment for an illness, so we're actually cocooning at the moment. So we're very locked down here at the moment. But it's been fine. I mean, it's been going great. It was #1 in Ireland for a couple of weeks, so I was thrilled with that. So it seems to be doing okay.
Oh, congratulations! That's fantastic. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Could you tell us? Maybe we'll come on to The Spinning Heart afterwards, because and then we'll play that song. But could you tell us a little bit about the new novel?
Yeah, well, it's set in a place called Knockagowny, which is a townland, a fictional townland. It means hill of calves in Irish, and but really, it's, I mean, the village where the book is set is based on my home village of Newtown in near Nina in Tipperary, and it's about, essentially, it's about two families, the Gladney family from Knockagowny and the Elmwood family from Notting Hill in London, and how their lives converge. Moll is the daughter of the Gladneys, and she goes missing at the very start of the novel. Very mysteriously, she just ups and leaves one morning, gets a bus to Dublin and a ferry across to England, and isn't seen again for 5 years. There's no spoiler there because she arrives back pretty early on in the novel. But when she comes back, her life has changed and her family's lives have changed forever. And I guess anything more than that really is a bit of a spoiler. But you know, she comes back married and with a child. You know, that's pretty early in the book as well. But it's kind of a book about familial love, I guess, and it's about, you know, human connection and loss, and the huge chasm that can exist between who we truly are and what we present to the world. And you know, that's true for everybody, I guess. There's always a gap between what's our true interiority and what we present, but for some people that can be a tragedy. You know, it can be almost a terminal tragedy, of course, for lots of people. And it is, I mean, it's a book about loss as well, and fatherhood. I wrote the first draft very quickly, just after my own father died 3 years ago, and I wrote it kind of very, very quickly in kind of a haze of grief. And it was, I think, an attempt maybe to, because it died suddenly and kind of in fairly horrific circumstances, so it was kind of an attempt to deflect the grief of that and the shock of it for a while. It really worked. And even, you know, I did kind of feel my father's presence as I wrote it, because he's very present in the book, because I draw on his personality a lot for two of the characters, for Paddy Gladney and for Alexander Elmwood. And as I wrote the very, very last scene, I felt a very strong sense of his presence and his voice saying, "But Mando, you got it just right." The ending, no, he meant, not the book itself. You know, I knew the book was fairly was maimed and needed to be healed, but the ending just felt right. It was a great feeling.
Wow, that's really powerful. I've never really heard that, somebody talk about how somebody has been so involved in their, you know, somebody whose literal presence is gone, but being right with them when they're writing. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I know it, you know, there's no way to define it exactly, but what it really is. But it was a great comfort, to be honest. I guess because he was so present in my writing anyway, and such a part of my writing life always. You know, we always went together to readings, and he traveled with me to things, and it was, you know, so I always had him there, and so it just felt as though he was still there. It was great. And you know, that's kind of, I suppose it's kind of a thing we tell ourselves, maybe, I don't know, but you know, it felt very real for me, so it was great.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that kind of, it's such a process of grief you're describing, like, and putting that grief, but in a using that to put something onto paper that kind of gets you to that end point, and it feels like just that thanking you at the end that you've got it right must have been a great comfort. And that other thing you said was interesting about the sort of that difference between the persona we give and the persona that we are. I mean, I guess we're all I feel like I'm constantly working out who I actually am the whole time. But it's I guess it's especially pertinent now, like where a lot of our interactions with people is very much this online. Like, I come across as a witty, charming, intelligent, you know, two-dimensional idiot, I think, which is probably. Do you think it has people will resonate with that kind of discussion? Because I guess it's obviously what lots of people would be talking about now anyway.
I think so, yeah, and I think that's so true, actually, Ben. I think people are going through a real process of reinvention at the moment, because our lives have changed so quickly, so dramatically, and the way we connect has changed so quickly, and hopefully it won't last. God forbid it lasts much longer than a few more months. But you know, when we're online, I mean, we're not exactly the same as we are when we're live in front of people, and it seems now as though everything is performative, and all the time we're putting on some kind of act, you know. You know, even to have a meeting with your friends, you know, to chat with your buddies, it becomes a kind of performance, and it can be such a slog as well. I really find that. I mean, my oldest friends we know for years and years, you know, and we're online together, and we're sitting there looking, going, "Oh Christ, what do we say next? What do we talk about?" It's so unnatural, and we have to force ourselves to say things and to think of stories, and you know, I kind of find myself making stuff up half the time to tell the lads because you know, because so little's happening. It's really strange.
Maybe we
And
should
you're
just
right,
all
though.
log on. We should just all log on and be silent and just sort of let each other get on with their things and just
Hang out,
occasionally wave out. I mean, that would be quite nice actually, just to bring people into the room.
Yeah, but it's partly that thing that you can see yourself. I mean, you can choose not to sometimes, but you can see yourself all the time. And even when we're performing, I mean, I think we're going to have to now do gigs with a massive mirror in front of us because we're so used to watching ourselves performing, and like there's so many. Like
so
you say,
true.
just a performance all the time.
It's like we're talking to you, Donald, but I'm actually looking at myself on the screen. Like it's just.
It's actually why I grew a beard. I grew a beard
weird.
at the start of lockdown because I can't do my own face. I have to cover it up somehow.
And let's just talk briefly about The Spinning Heart as well. So that was your first novel, is that right?
It was my first published novel. It was the second novel I wrote. The first novel I wrote was published after Spinning Heart because my publishers kind of saw a kind of gap in the market for a post-recession novel. It sounds so boring, but you know, there was kind of a lot of opining in Ireland at the time by critics and journalists about the kind of lack of literature that confronted the cycle of boom and bust in Ireland. You know, the devastation that was wrought by the bank guarantee. And so the Spinning Heart seemed to kind of fit into that gap, you know, and it really did. Like, it did really well for me. Like, I was so lucky. I mean, it was just such huge luck involved with timing. I mean, it sounds kind of awful to say I had luck because I wrote a book about people's lives being devastated, you know. But I kind of felt, you know, okay. I mean, I was there myself, you know. I walked the walk, so it's okay. I was in the same situation. And the people in the book are all based on people I knew and loved dearly. Well, most of them anyway. And so it was a very personal book, and it was written kind of in the white heat of the moment as well. And so, you know, it just seemed to work. But again, like, that book as well is about, you know, every character in the book is delivering a monologue, and there's no clear indication given of why they're speaking. And people are saying things that they actually wouldn't say. I mean, it's set again in a small rural village in Ireland, and people are making admissions that they wouldn't make in a million years. And so it feels kind of confessional. And in my head, I had an idea of a confessional with a priest. And, you know, there's this thing, I don't know if you guys would be familiar with this, but if you go to confession to confess your sins to a priest, if you've got a very bad sin to confess, you wouldn't go to your local priest. You know, you might travel 50 or 60 miles, like, you get a bus, you know, as far as you can go to tell the really bad stuff. So I had the idea, you know, of somebody confessing to a strange priest, basically through a gauze, and kind of bearing their souls.
Yeah, I think it really works because, like, sometimes, you know, sometimes when you read a book and the words that come out don't feel like they're coming from the character. Like, sometimes you have an author writing something and every character talks in exactly the same way, and that's not true. That's definitely not true of yours, but it's true that they come across as sort of total confessionals, you know, for themselves and you know, this part. You know, aside from gossiping on everyone else in the town, you know, really being honest about themselves. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was it took me to a place that I didn't know and a time that I didn't know, and I think one of the good things that we enjoy about the Bookshop Band is that when we put down a book, we have an emotional response to something that we've never experienced because you've given us that emotional attachment to something through spending time reading the stories, and I certainly felt that. And it was really hard writing The Spinning Heart because I felt that it had to be, you know, with a lot of books it's kind of you just really free with your response and just go. But with The Spinning Heart, because it was dealing with a time and a place that was very real and not that far away from us at all, I kind of felt like it had to be right, and that's a really difficult thing to do when you write a song. And it's certainly not right, but it was a pressure I felt because it was so vivid. What you wrote was so vivid and so grounded in a reality that I felt I had to try and capture that. But I think
you did. It feels and sounds so perfect to me. There's a beautiful sense of yearning and longing in the melody of the song. It's just gorgeous, and I love the video too. I love you guys just walking through that. I think is it a foundry or something that you're walking through?
Yeah,
it's beautiful. Yeah. I'm
well,
so
Donald,
proud of it.
Oh, thank you. It was our really good lockdown project as well. So thank you for giving that to us.
Thank you,
We're
Chris.
going to have a go playing it live.
Brilliant.
We apologise in advance, mainly because like no musician should ever be asked to play any music before about 6 o'clock in the evening.
I know.
And this one uses my electric. I never really used this electric guitar.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's new, and I'm just sort of slowly building up a little repertoire on it. And I'm absolutely loving it actually. But yeah, it's not my first instrument. Anyway, so
Get all the excuses out
I
now,
know,
right?
I know. I just put the excuses out. Anyway, okay, Donald, we're going to have a go playing you the
Brilliant.
Spinning Heart. I'm going to take off my headphones. Washed off, lost is the flesh we fear. Smother you in plaster, cherish you, my dear. It's toughened for the weather, but brittle to a tear. You will never get out of here. Time for us, spin for us. Grease back slag with a smile, you know. We'll call you when it's ready. Call you if it goes. Your future is as heady, as steady as below. Just leave your money before you go. Time for us. Just spin to dust. Just time for us. Just spin to dust. This is the greatest gift that I will ever take from Nail it to the heather and tether to sand. We built this all together, a statue of a man. Here's two for Timmy, then clearly I stand, looking at the timber hitting my hand to tear it down. All you need, and to tear it down. All you need, and to tear it down. All you need, and to tear it down. All you need is.
Fabulous.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Beautiful.
And people can check out the video on YouTube. Of
Absolutely, yeah. It's on. If you look up the Spinning Heart, the Bookshop Band on YouTube, or if anyone's there and wants to post a link in the comments, we've got loads of people actually joining us. I should say hello to a few people. We've got Joyce Cochrane in the Old Bank Bookshop, just across Wigtown. Hi, Joyce and everyone there. I've got Ying Lu in Taiwan. Hi, Ying. She ran the open book, I think, for a week last year. We've got Carol Muller, Ken Humphreys, loads of people. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the show. Thank you, Donald. So we are now going to move on this morning to Mary Kidd. We're delighted to be joined by you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Where are you coming in from?
I'm coming in from Portobello. I'm sitting here in the beautiful sunshine with the beach just out the window. And on a glorious day. I'm so sorry I couldn't hear you. I don't know what happened.
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure there will be many technical disasters over the course of the next 10 days, and they will mostly be my fault. So this is great. I can see the glow of the sand, the lovely beach light coming in there. So Mary, you've written a number of books, and you've got a new one out just now. Can you tell us a little bit?
Yes, I'll tell you about it. You went on Thursday.
So on Thursday, really?
I worked Thursday. So it's brand new, but I think when I'm showing you, you can't see the title. It's called Feisty and Fiery and Fierce. And it's a collection of stories of 13 women from each of the Celtic nations of Scotland, Ireland and Wales. And it's a sort of companion piece to the book I wrote last year. They're not handy books to show on screen, actually. They're quite large thumping things. And I still can't work out what way to go.
I know, it's so hard.
It's really hard. So last year I wrote Warriors and Witches and Damn Rebel Bitches, and that was a collection of women's lives, Scottish women's lives, with little sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek ideas for how you could honour those women in your own life. And then I went off last year to Dublin to chair a panel of brilliant Irish writers who write about witches, and it was a really funny experience because the Gutter Bookshop, Dublin's brilliant Gutter Bookshop, were there doing the book sales, and they hadn't ordered Warriors and Witches because they thought, well, that's a Scottish book, no one will want it. And then I had all these sort of Irish librarians coming up and being not very pleased that they couldn't get hold of a copy.
Bob.
But it really inspired me to start thinking I would love to know more about our neighbour Celtic countries. And I was when I was at university, I have a degree in Celtic studies, so we studied a bit of Irish, although I speak the worst Irish in the world. But actually, Wales is kind of a mystery to me, but it's where my husband's people are from. So I thought I want to go and I want to write more Scottish women, which was a real joy because I had to leave so many out of the first book. And then I want to find these stories. And then as the book evolved, I ended up writing a slightly provocative, perhaps, her story of Scotland, of Ireland, and of Wales. So it was great fun to write.
Oh, that's
fantastic. Who are these aimed at, Mary? Are they aimed at everybody? Are they aimed at younger people, or is it?
The content's quite strong, so they're definitely aimed at adults, potentially young adults, depending on how happy they and their people are reading sort of stronger content, because these are full lives. They're women who lived great lives, women who lived difficult lives, women who were persecuted through the witch trials. But actually, one of my favourites in here is she was either, her name is Isabel Nevi Callen, and so literally Isabel, daughter of the son of Colin. And the son of Colin is the Earl of Argyle's kenning in Gaelic. So she was either the daughter or the wife of the Earl of Argyle. And she was a poet. And her poetry appears in the Book of the Dean of Lismore from the 1500s, written down. And she wrote a lot of really racy courtly love. And then she wrote a praise poem in praise of her household priest's penis. She has a different view on going off to tell your confession to someone quite far away. And it's called East with Wugandesa, listen, people of this house. And then it's just this enormous Gaelic praise poem to a penis. So she's in there. And so that gives you maybe a taste for fights, maybe not for the youngest readers. But that said, when Warriors and Witches came out and we were all allowed to go to meet people in the flesh to talk about books, I signed multiple copies for unborn babies that were going to go in sort of almost book capsules for them. And then I signed one and sent it off in the post for a 95th birthday. So arguably also it's got quite a
big. Yeah, because I just think it's great that there are starting to be, because we've got a 3-year-old, Molly, and I think, introducing her to books that are about strong women, and and also, not necessarily famous strong women, people that we haven't heard of and that were doing really good things, or that have, I don't know, or just very normal people, but not in their kind of stereotypical roles. And I just think it's really important to have those pieces of literature to bring our kids up with. Otherwise, they all, they fall into the same roles again. Otherwise,
exactly. No matter how, it's always been skewed, and so like the more we can do to put that history, because it's all history, it's all there, it's all lives people have lived, and it's rather than sort of bombarded by the kind of media bias for the last thousands of years. I don't know, that thing. But it sounds amazing. It sounds like it's a really fun read as well, apart from being probably difficult and tough occasionally. Do you have any examples of the things you could inject into your own life to honour someone from the last book?
Well, it's kind of goes through the quite literal. So there's an amazing Irish woman, and I'm going to, because Donald's here and Peggy's here, I'm so embarrassed at even trying to say her name, but I think it's Margaret, but it's spelt Margaret. It's not spelt as I would understand Mairead or Myred, and O'Carroll. And she ran these incredible arts festivals that are recorded in the annals. And she almost built like a sort of Olympic village to put up all of her priests, her genealogists and her poets and all the others who came to perform. These just unbelievable, fabulous celebrations of the arts that must have cost in money then unthinkable sums. But she died of breast cancer. So the little lesson is obviously check your boobs. So some of them are very literal in that way. And then, Mary Queen of Scots, obviously there's quite a lesson in thinking about maybe who you marry or get involved with and who you don't. And then there's this sort of more kind of thoughtful. So in one of the books, there's a woman who literally was put in a cage. So thinking about the different forms of cages that we can put ourselves in. And so some of it is a wee bit kind of more metaphorical. One thing I did want to say, because I so agree with you about being able to give young people the examples of women who've gone before us, is one of the things I was really happy about was to discover from our most ancient history, women of colour on the record. And one of the women I'm proudest of in finding the story and telling the story is a woman called Ellen Moore, who was a lady in waiting at court in the reign of James IV. And it's Moor as in the word Moor, Moor. So she had been taken by a Scottish privateer from a Portuguese slave ship and was brought to Scotland and brought to court, where she was quite a high status individual, although you could obviously reflect on her status because she wasn't fully free. But I spoke to a journalist this week because obviously the book's just come out, and she told me the nicest thing. She said, I'm going to give a copy to my daughter because my daughter has African heritage, and that would be the first time she could ever find herself in a book about Scotland's history. And that just, I had a proper tear.
Yeah. Last night I've been reading Why I No Longer Talk to White People about race. The book by Remy, can't remember how to say her name is, but thank you. But I was reading that exact thing about seeing people of colour, never been able to see themselves in literature. Like, for example, they gave the example of Harry Potter and Hermione, and why that couldn't be, or why that hasn't been, why you can't imagine that to be a person of colour, because that's not, we're just exposed to all these people. We imagine them to be white, and we haven't even thought about that. That's not part of what we think about. And so to actually see yourself as a person of colour in literature is a huge thing for kids growing up, and to have that exposure to something real, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think in history too, it's really important because we tell this narrative that it's false, that we've been a white country forever, and actually there were African people here during Roman times, and there's a reference in an Ulster Cycle text to a black man being involved in the action in the text, and you think, well, we have this false notion that our history is this white place, and it's I think it's really empowering, and it helps us to challenge some of the narratives about representation and people who push back about representation and say, no, actually, I'm sorry, I think you'll find you're wrong.
Yeah, it certainly makes one think. I have that white privilege, and I haven't thought about that really ever before. So it's just even planting something in each of us is really important, I think, to get us thinking about it.
And also, like, in this, as we were talking to Donald, like in this moment of self-isolation, like seeing, books are a wonderful way of reaching out, as I was saying earlier, like putting yourself emotionally in the lives of someone you've never met before or in a situation you've never imagined. And so having that broad spectrum of real people in your book for people to relate to learn from, like it feels like those sorts of connections in there are very timely for us now, just to appreciate and remember and learn about.
Yeah, and the differences are fascinating too. Do you know when Donald first spoke and he said about cocooning in Ireland? I've always, ever since the COVID outbreak and understanding how things, because Ireland locked down faster and in many ways was bolder, but isn't it lovely that you use that word cocoon? I always think it's, you're a proper storytelling people that have made the idea of protection and cocooning so central. We have this very kind of shielding sort of, just so much nice, clever about how people work.
Yeah, and cocooning feels like that, doesn't
Lovely.
it? Cocooning, shielding, that's the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mary, thank you. We're going to play you a song now that Beth will introduce.
Yeah, I think we're probably slightly short of time, so I won't say too much about it, apart from it's about a strong woman, I believe, and it's a book by Emma Hooper called Etta and Otto and Russell and James, and it's about this woman, an older woman called Etta, who's in her 80s, and she decides that she wants to go and see the sea, having never visited it before, but wants to go before she forgets that that's what she wants to do. And so she leaves a note for her husband, Otto, and she sets off on this journey to go and find the sea. And so, yeah, we see Etta as a strong woman, so I thought that was relatable to what you were talking about.
When I turn my camera to the sea.
That's such a lovely idea.
I'll try.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So the song is called Edge of the World. There we go. Oh, it's so nice. This lady, this crazy lady, she's alright. She's alright. This woman, she chose to make this journey to the light, to the find something. You'll find something or someone to hold on to hold on to. The water is pulling me through. The water I'm holding on to. And I've never been to the sea. The waves, they are waiting for me to come home. You get used to leaving your mind, leaving your mind. You forget what you're leaving behind, leaving behind. Now I remember my life. Now and then I remember my life. The colors, they're fading away, fading away. My sisters, my brothers, they're with me today, with me today. And I fought for this land. And I taught in this land. And I walk in this land. And I've never been to the sea. The waves, they are waiting for me to come home.
Wow. Incredible.
So nice to be able to see the sea while singing that. I mean, that's much better than looking at yourself, isn't it? Like, for me, I concentrated on the sea, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, for the last third of our show, joined by Peggy Hughes.
Woo, 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 woo.
Hi, everyone.
That way. Oh, I did that way. Yes. Thank you, Peggy. It must be strange not to be in Wigtown, because normally you are a huge feature of the Wigtown Book Festival in person.
It's deeply weird not to be there with you all. Yeah, I'm sad. I'm sad actually not to be there. Obviously, it was going to be this way for some while, but yeah, it's a funny feeling. It's also a funny but lovely feeling to not be in the chair seat, because normally I'm there, of course, interviewing people. So it's a curious treat to be on the other end of it today. Really nice to be here.
I hadn't really thought about that, and now I'm absolutely terrified.
Oh no, gosh, no! I love your show. I'm just thrilled to be on. To be honest, I was just reflecting there with that song, which is one of my absolutely favourite Bookshop Band songs. Two embarrassing things happened. One, I almost started to cry, and two, I almost started to join in. So two utterly mortifying reactions to that. So kept it together. Good.
Well done, Peggy.
So, Peggy, for those of people that don't know, can you tell us a little bit about where you're coming in from and what you are currently up to?
Sure. Well, I stay in Norwich, which is like opposite, almost directly opposite. If Wigtown's southwest of Scotland, Norwich is sort of southeast of England, where it's an absolutely filthy day outside. In my day job, I'm the programme director of the National Centre for Writing here in England. But I've been involved with the Wigtown Festival, I think it's 12 years. Could be 11, I lost count, but it's been a long while of coming to the festival and getting to know the town and the folk and so on. So yeah, and during this period, we've kept up really nice connections with Wigtown because myself and my other half, Colin, who some festival people will also know, is a podcast producer. So we've been working together on the Wigtown Book Festival podcast, which has been really exciting actually. So that's been going all the way through lockdown, and now during the festival proper, we were doing it weekly, and now we're doing a podcast every day as part of the festival. So it's been truly lovely actually to stay connected to people during this deeply odd period and to have an excuse to phone up Alan Johnson, the former MP, and speak to Mary from the Wigtown Post Office and all sorts of folk. Honestly, it's been really lovely.
So yeah, what can you expect to find on the podcast for those who haven't tuned in?
So if you can find it wherever you get your podcasts, so Google Podcast, Apple, all the rest, Spotify, and so there's a whole backlist of conversations that have taken place, as I say, over the past couple of months. We've featured people like I'm looking back at my bookcase. We've got Bernadette Russell, who wrote a beautiful book about hope, Kirsten Innes' Scabby Queen, Alan Johnson, as I say. We had some themed episodes around the idea of post, around the idea of what people are up to during lockdown. But during the festival proper, as I say, we're releasing one a day. So yesterday we just released an episode on James Hogg. So the Ettrick Shepherd is celebrating his 250th birthday this year. So we had on an academic called Valentina Bold, and two writers who've been themselves inspired by Hogg, who are James Robertson and Graham McRae Burnett. So they reflected on what his influence has meant to them. Today's episode's a really lovely one. It's with Katie Patterson, who, if people have heard of the Future Library Project, this absolutely staggering project, which I followed for a while. So it launched in 2014, where she commissioned a piece of work from Margaret Atwood, which would be written now and shelved, stored away, not to be released for 100 years. Whoa. So she's doing that every year for 100 years. And then at the end of the 100 years, 2114, there's going to be a beautiful book of all the pieces that have been commissioned. But it kind of, it just breaks my brain that none of us can read the work of Margaret Atwood and Sion from Iceland and, Ocean Vuong and all these sort of incredible writers. So it was lovely to chat to her. There's all sorts coming out. It's been really good to work on.
I wonder what those people would be writing. I mean, are they? I guess you don't know. We'll never know. But unless we live to 100 and something, which who knows?
Who knows?
I suppose lots of them might write letters to the future from our current selves, or it sounds like a fascinating project. Yeah,
it's a fascinating project. It's what Mary was saying about kind of time capsules and how a work will, I suppose, land in that distant time as writers. I mean, you must think like, how will this be read by a future reader, or the funny present weather? Will they write pieces that reflect on this absolutely bewildering time we're in, and how will that be in 100 years? I don't know. The whole thing is absolutely astonishing to me. I love it.
I'd write a prediction. I think I'd write a prediction of what it'd be like in 100 years, and then just see how wrong it would be.
Well, maybe you should write a song that will, in your imagination, not be listened to for 100 years and reflect on what you would write about.
That's the same as most of our songs, Peggy.
Oh yeah? Oh, of course it is. Yes.
But the podcast, as it says, a new one every day during the festival.
Every day, 9:30. So if you're the breakfast, you kick us off. We put you to bed. That's the way. We're bookends, if you like.
9:30 in the evening.
That's
I was going to
really
say
nice.
that.
Yeah, we're not competition. No, PM. Yeah.
Great. Great, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And just very quickly as well, Norwich has become the city of literature. Is that right? Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. So Edinburgh was the world's first, actually, way back, and then Norwich was the first in England in 2012. So yeah, it just basically means, much like Wigtown's Booktown status, being a city of literature, I guess, just means that you've both got, you know, a remarkable literary heritage and loads of writers to celebrate, and a history that's worth kind of, you know, championing. But it's as much about a future as well. Speaking of the future, it's as much about what's going to come next, about the community that you're in, about a vibrancy, about your bookshops and your libraries. So yeah, it's a good place to be if you're a book lover like me, reader, writer. Yeah,
running the program director of the Writers' Centre for sure. And we've actually played in the Writers' Centre. We went there a few years ago, and I can attest it's a really amazing space. It's an old kind of quadrangle, isn't it, of a building, and the room where we played at the top is just absolutely spectacular. But I suppose that are there many events able to happen there at the moment, or is it kind of all...
Much like everywhere else, we are online for the moment. And while that it has been really interesting, I think what Donald was saying earlier on about screens and seeing you, and we were all saying about seeing yourself, it's both alarming but also deeply encouraging that we can stay connected. In my opinion, it's been such a funny time, and I was just thinking about, you know, Maggie O'Farrell's Hamnet, for example, which talks about the, you know, the earlier plague and so on. Just thinking about what must that have been like to be locked down without a chance of being connected to the outside world. So yeah, and so it's But I think there are optimisms and opportunities within these funny times. So yeah, we're all online as well.
Yeah, well, I think one of those things is reaching possibly a wider audience, isn't it? Not just people that are in Norwich, for example, but people that are in, I don't know, like we've been playing to people in New Mexico and all around the world, and it does expand the audience and the connections that you have, and you can engage with those people as well, you know, via Facebook or whatever. You can actually kind of reply to their comments and have an interaction that you might not have had it just been there. So there are, you know, like you say, there's a positive side as well.
Yeah, there's things to grow during this time. There's things that are, different fruit to plant.
Yeah, I think it's while it's sad not to be with you there in person, it's remarkable to think of all the people for whom Wigtown was, you know, for whatever reason they couldn't get there, but they're all tuning in. They're all kind of getting to see this beautiful film and the films that Colin Tennant has made for the festival, and you guys, and so I think that's really extraordinary and something to feel cheerful about. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for joining us this morning. It's been really, really interesting talking to all of you and finding out a little bit about what you've been doing and also where you are, and seeing the sea in your lovely studio, Donald, and can picture you writing in there from now on. But I think we're going to finish off with a last song that we've picked, not because of any relevance, but I think in the past you've said it might have been one of your faves, Peggy. So that's why we've picked this song.
and of course you can sing along.
Oh, is it that one?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, I might have to do a little bit of quiet singing.
So just again, very quickly, because we're probably running out of time, but thank you so much, everybody, and thanks for everybody for tuning in. Please all sing along at home. We're going to sing a little ditty about a book called Burton and Swinburne in the Strange Affair of Spring-Heeled Jack, which is a kind of Victorian time-travelling accident kind of thing. That's as much as I'm going to say, but it's got a little chorus that goes like this. Smog over London looks jolly splendid, I've heard.
You'll go, Peggy.
Smog over London looks jolly splendid, I've heard. Wonderful.
Okay, everyone at home.
Sail over Battersea in your velocipede, show off your skills in the air. Don't let technologists catch you and soar off bits. What are they building in there? It's such a joy to be in my velocipede, flying as high as a bird. Smog over London looks looks jolly splendid, I've heard. Smog over London looks jolly splendid, I've heard. London ain't meant to be the way it turned out to be. God didn't save the Queen, oh. Talking dogs on the street, blooming parakeets, exploding walls, don't you know? And who'd have thought Nightingale would side with all those males making a hash of us all? Smog over London looks jolly splendid, I've heard. Smog over London looks jolly splendid, I've heard. One more time. Smog over London looks jolly splendid, I've heard.
Very good.
Thank you.
I suddenly had the thought that there might be 4-year-olds watching, and I decided not to swear on the.
Probably good. So thank you everyone for tuning in to this Celtic edition of the Breakfast Show. That was probably on reflection, not an appropriate song to sing for the Celtic edition, but hey, join us again next week. No, tomorrow morning, every day of the Wigtown Book Festival, and we'll be joined by 3 more authors who I can only hope are as lovely as the 3 we've had this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to Donna Ryan,
Thank
Mary
you.
Kidd,
Thank you,
and Peggy
guys.
Hughes.
So
Have a great
enjoyable.
rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.